Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Purposeful Learning Festival 2021. My name is Stephanie Scott, and I'm the Marketing Director here at O'Donnell Learn, and we are very excited to have you join us for today's roundtable, Student Support Coaching, a University Superpower, with my new colleagues from In-Source Services Group, and it's going to be led by Dr. Rita Gloria Sawyer. Dr. Sawyer is a bilingual and English and Spanish educator dedicated to a higher education career based on integrity, compassion, diversity, inclusivity, with a strong desire to assist students and staff in achieving educational goals. She has over 25 years of progressive administration experience in student affairs at public, private, online, and proprietary schools, with a proven leadership in developing collaborative relationships across university divisions. Prior to joining ISG, she served as Chief Student Affairs Officer at a mostly historical Black graduate institution. She has been with ISG for almost 4 years. I'm so excited to be working with her now. But before I hand the webinar over to Dr. Rita, here are some quick housekeeping items. This is a very interactive session, and it is important that we hear from you. You'll notice the chat button on the bottom of the screen. Please use it now to introduce yourselves to the group, and make sure all panelists and attendees is selected from the dropdown. Also, use the chat throughout the session to share comments with the entire group and put any questions that you have in that space. Please note that there is also an option to turn on the live transcription in the Zoom control bar. We'll be sending out resources to all of the attendees, including the recording and slides via the Slack channel that we are all participating with during the festival and later on. And now I will hand the webinar over to Dr. Sawyer. Take it away, Rita.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Hello, from whatever time zone you're joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, and good day to you. Thank you so much for joining our session today. To get our presentation going, it is my absolute pleasure to provide you with an introduction and overview of the Student Success Coach role. At In-Source Services Group, our Student Success team is made up of dedicated student affairs educators who support students through their graduate school journey. Coaches have higher education backgrounds in everything from academic advising, admissions and enrollment, diversity education, to residence life and education. Each coach serves as an extension of the college or university we support, and they serve as a liaison and resource for connecting students to institutional support services. The overarching goal of their student-centered work is to develop a trusting and collaborative relationship with students, and to help them gain a greater understanding of personal strengths, values, and self-accountability during their academic journey. As you hear from them today, you will get an idea of how what they do helps to support students' mental health wellness. Their relationship building is done through proactive outreach, through one-on-one video meetings, and/or small group sessions. We feel that for a student to be successful in his, her, or their program, it is important that they feel connected to their institution, to their program, and that they know they matter. The coach's availability and presence are especially helpful to students dealing with unprecedented challenges we have all faced over the last couple years, from the pandemic to the emergence of urgent national conversations about racial justice. To that end, our dedicated support coaches create safe spaces for students to ask questions about not only program logistics or student concerns, but also to explore solutions to barriers they may be facing due to life or current events that cause anxiety. For example, finding it difficult to concentrate as a result of unanticipated changes in their life due to COVID, loss, or maybe even stress from planning for an upcoming wedding. Every student's needs for connecting with the coach are different, but they all matter. Joining the conversation today are support coaches who work with students in programs such as education policy and leadership, social work, public health, supply chain management, and information systems technology. These colleagues create safe spaces for students to engage about barriers they may be experiencing during the course of their academic program, and for them to explore options for tackling such barriers. We are excited to be joining you today and for the opportunity to share how our work supports students' mental health wellness. Although the session description lists me as a session leader, the real leaders are my colleagues and support coaches from whom you will hear today. With that, I will turn it over to my People Connector colleague, Karen Caputa, for her introduction and portion of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rita. I'm going to share my screen and put up our first poll results for everyone. And as Dr. Rita said, my name is Karen Caputa, and I work with educational program leadership students. So folks who are often in the classroom and looking to find that role out of the classroom into a leadership position, whether that's running for school board, starting their own school, or moving into administration. So I'm delighted to be here and share with you a little bit about what we do as success coaches. Being a support coach is the best job that I have ever had, and I adore what I do. And a lot of that, as Dr. Rita mentioned, is because of the connections we get to make and the relationships we build with students. So we asked you to share today a little bit about what your role is in supporting students. We have a little bit of everything. You guide, you assist, you coach, you make sure students feel included, and they're finding their place. So I think we have a little bit of everything joining us in the room, and I'm excited to hear how you all build relationships with your students and with the folks you're working with at different institutions and different providers. But I wanted to share a little bit about what makes the support coach role so unique. And I think unique is probably the best way to describe this role. We have the unique position of working with students, but not being in control of their grades. We're not in control of tests. We don't hold their future in our hands. So there's a little bit of a disconnect from them. So it's not an impact directly on their grades. The ways folks have described it are, I tell people I'm everyone's cheerleader. My role is to remind you why you're here, to encourage you when you get lost, and to kind of normalize the whole process. One of my other colleagues, Ashunda, said she refers to herself as your BFF that nobody else knows about. And I think that's probably a really good kind of visual to think about. We're the folks that you can come to if students are struggling with things in the classroom, the transition to being a graduate student online during a global pandemic, in the middle of having a real life, all of those things. But also, my car broke down and I have to get to work and I have homework and they just need a person to talk through. So our position gives us that unique opportunity to have those conversations and to be a support in all facets of their life, in all areas of their life. And a lot of that is just listening. But there are often times for us to connect them with university resources, whether that's the counseling center, getting them connected with the writing center, library resources, or getting them connected to each other. Sometimes the best connection we can make for a student is to connect them with someone else who's in their shoes or in a similar situation, so they get that normalized view of everyone is struggling, everyone has bumps, everyone in your classes every day who looks like they have it all together does not have it together 5 minutes before they turn on their Zoom camera. So making that normal for them. I think what makes us really successful is that we've been given permission and kind of instructed to be vulnerable and authentic with our students. My students know about my life. They know about my children. They know about where I live. We joke about it a lot. I live in rural Oklahoma. There's a lot to joke about. But we get to be authentic and vulnerable with students and just be real and support them along their journey. And what makes us so successful is we have excellent note taking. Our record management system allows us to keep track of all of those conversations, detail what students are going through, whether it is broken down car, struggling in a course, whatever that is. So we have those notes, we can go back. Sometimes students get really impressed that we remember that their partner is a Montessori preschool teacher. I didn't remember that. I wrote it down and I checked my notes. But we have these tools and abilities that help us connect to students where they are, meet them and help them be successful as they tackle this program and they move on. So that's a little bit about what we do, and I will hand it over to Markeisha and Mandy to chat a little bit more about what we do.
everyone, I'm Mandy Martin. I'm a support coach with a Master's of Arts in Education program. Well, McCarran just went over how we build relationships. We are just one piece of the puzzle that provides support for students. And that support starts prior to their first class. A week before the semester begins, we email the faculty that have our students enrolled in the class, introducing ourselves, telling them about our role, and encouraging them to utilize us. If they are concerned about a student, reach out to us. Let us help you help that student. In addition, our partner campus has us attend orientation for faculty so we can meet with them face-to-face over Zoom and really have that conversation about best practices to make sure students aren't falling through the cracks. As coaches, we do have access to their online environments. We can see their courses, we can see their grade books. Do want to emphasize, we are not TAs. So while we can see their grades, we're not grading their assignments, we're not helping them do their schoolwork. We're just utilizing the grade books to look for patterns of concern. So I'm checking for missing assignments, I'm checking for late assignments, low grades, poor attendance. If I am seeing any of these triggers, of course, I'm reaching out to the students to make sure they're okay, see how I can help. But I'm also meeting weekly with my campus partner and having meetings, talking about these triggers, patterns of concern, letting them know if I can't reach out to a student. And from there, we can work together to decide if this needs to follow the line of escalation up to the program director or even the dean of students to do a wellness check to make sure that student is okay. It really is a complete support network for students.
Absolutely. My name is Markeisha Henry, and I support students in an educational leadership and public policy program and a global perspectives program. Most of my students are teachers, administrators, and as you can imagine, adding grad school to their already full schedule can be a recipe for additional stress. During the first week of the semester, it is important for students to log into their learning management system and engage. For various reasons, sometimes that does not happen. Instructors will contact the support coach to let us know the student has not engaged, and it will prompt us to outreach to that student to see how they are doing, if they intend to continue in the program, or if they need additional technology training. Students at the graduate level often experience imposter syndrome, and as equipped as they may be as professionals, for many of them, they've been out of school for 10 plus years. The technology has changed, and just the overwhelming feeling of balancing their personal, professional, and now academic responsibilities can bring in a lot of doubt. Because of the relationship that we've established that Mandy and McCarran have talked about, our students often feel comfortable being vulnerable with us and sharing that they are struggling. And that's where we come in to normalize and validate what they're feeling and what they're experiencing. We remind them that they're not going through this process alone, and that often motivates them to engage because they see, oh, my instructor is noticing that I'm not engaging or that I'm not in class. And they know I have a support coach that is there if I need them. And then they're also going through this process, this journey with a cohort of peers. We also work with our faculty and student ambassadors to coordinate professional development events and social events. Whether our students are in technology-based programs or educational-based programs, tutoring is always, seems to always be in need. And so we host tutoring sessions, APA workshops to refresh on writing styles, or a session with our librarian or career services director so that they can learn how to utilize the resources that they have access to. So we also host social events where our students can engage with us, their support coach, faculty, and their peers outside of the classroom. Our graduate students also need a space to engage outside of the classroom, whether it be to talk about their feelings or to engage in pop culture, just to get away from what they're having to do with whether it be work or even family and school, just to talk about whatever is on their mind. And so as a support coach, meeting with students weekly and monthly, we start to see common themes our students are feeling, whether themes that they're feeling or experiencing. And sometimes we find that the students need a wellness event, or they need a social event or a professional development event. And so again, that rapport that we establish with them allows us to tailor the events that we have to their needs. We found these events to be impactful in continuing to build community and ensure that the students in these programs thrive. Buy-in and participation from our students as well as our campus partners is what makes these events a success. Going through a graduate program, particularly online, can feel isolating to some students, and having a support team that includes their support coach, their instructors, and of course their peers is a constant reminder that they are not on this journey alone. And so I'll turn it over to Sheila to share a little bit about our student and support coach interactions. Actually, to McCarran, who's
I'm going to share a poll. I'm going to share our next poll results with everybody. Thank you for participating in our poll. It's been fun to learn new things. So we asked, what are some of the common issues and challenges facing your students? Bless you for COVID only appearing twice. We could have all typed it 5 times, I'm pretty sure. So I think you hit the nail on the head. COVID, anxiety, burnout, stress, family pressures. I think balance is a big one, and just managing all that they have on their plate, on top of adding a global pandemic and graduate school and all of the other things. So nice work, you've hit it on the head. And I'm going to hand it over to Sheila and the rest of our fabulous coaches to talk a little bit about how we manage these different topics.
Thank you, McCarran. My name is Sheila Davis, and I support Masters of Public Health online students. From the beginning, I want to give students a safe place. I start by sending an email intro to them when I'm first introduced to them, just telling a bit about myself, explaining my role, and inviting them to meet with me over Zoom. In that initial meeting, I have a dual focus: to build rapport and to make sure students have the information and resources that they need. I'm a firm believer that information helps reduce student anxiety. I want to learn about them, their background, interest in the program, what excites them about school, their goals, concerns, fears, and anxieties. To get them to share these, they have to feel they can trust me. So as I go through my checklist with students, technology, curriculum requirements, registration, course format, financial aid, orientation, those types of things, I'm also doing several things to lay that trust foundation and help ease any anxiety. Here are some of the things I've found to be key in doing this. I let them help guide the conversation to make it fluid. So we address what is most pressing on their minds. It's not about me and my agenda, so I don't have to get through my list. That's okay. We can have a follow-up meeting or an email. I also try not to assume that they know things. That can be really stressful because they don't live higher ed every day like we do. So I ask questions like, do you know what that is? Have you heard of this? Does that make sense? Is this too much information right now or just the right amount? Because I also don't want to overwhelm them. I give them a resource sheet with the most used contacts, departments, and resources, but I also listen. I listen for questions and comments from the student that might suggest challenges they face, additional information they might need, or things that are causing them concern. Some of the things that have come up would be like learning challenges, anxiety about technology, concern over balancing school, work, and life, and mental health issues. And then I can share resources such as accessibility services, offer technology training one-on-one, suggest time management tools, and most importantly, ask them how I can support them and let them tell me what would be helpful. One example is a student of mine who shared struggles with depression. I asked her how I could support her, and I let her know I'm also available just to listen. Because sometimes students have the ideas that their coach is someone they just come to if they have logistical questions. So we like to make sure they know, you can bounce things off of us and just come in and talk if that's what you need. This student asked if I could reach out once a week and check on her. I think it's also important to ask students how they would like that outreach, Zoom, phone, text. Because some of my students are adults, they're working, they can't answer the phone during the day, but they might be able to answer a quick text. They could say, I'm fine, or I need to meet with you. In wrapping up the meeting, I ask if they have any additional questions or concerns. And I also ask how they feel about getting started. Most students say nervous and excited. So exploring these answers can tell us a lot about what's going on with that student. Then I make sure they know next steps. Knowing next steps can reduce anxiety. The hope is that in this initial meeting, it's given the student confidence that they have someone to come to if they have questions, concerns, struggles, or just need support and encouragement, someone to listen or to bounce things off of during their program. And I also enjoy hearing about their accomplishments. I'm now going to pass this over to my great colleague, Ashley, to share a little bit about how we engage students once we've had that initial meeting to the time they start courses.
Thank you, Sheila. And I'm just getting a thunderstorm now, so you all will hear the ambiance of thunder and lightning as I'm going through mine. Hopefully my connection stays okay. So my name is Ashley Inglesby. I support students in 2 online Master of Education programs. And as Sheila mentioned, one of our main goals in working with students is to ease their anxiety as they're starting a grad school program. A lot of our students have been out of school for a long time, and Markeisha mentioned imposter syndrome. We definitely see that. So in the initial meeting, we cover a lot of information to make sure that they are ready to start in the upcoming semester. For some students, it's good, but for others, it can be really overwhelming as it kind of hits them of what they're going to be undertaking. My goal in the time in between the initial meeting and the start of the semester is to provide constant communication and to start fostering a sense of connection with the classmates and the university. So how do we form this community and connection? So communication continues from the completion of the initial meeting. We always send out personalized emails to our students. They address topics and concerns we covered and go over some pertinent information that they need to know before the start of the semester. In the weeks following the meeting and leading up to that first day, I try to connect at least once a week with incoming students. Sometimes it's just a general mass email with information about campus resources like the Writing Center or the Career Services Department. I also do a lot of personalized outreach with emails, texts, and calls asking students where they are in that onboarding process, if they finish orientation, or if there's anyone else they need to meet with, particularly financially, because we always want to make sure those financial issues are all set before they start. And as I'm doing all this outreach, I make constant notes of how often students get back to me, how fast they are, their mode of communication. Sometimes other concerns will be brought up that we have to address. A lot of times it is anxiety, and kind of the far closer we get, a little more nervous the students get. But my goal during this time period is for students to hear from me so much that they automatically think of me when they have a question or concern. And then building community is also extremely important, especially for online students. In my experience, students who have fostered connections with their classmates, faculty, and university staff seem to be happier with their time in the program. So how do we build that sense of community, especially when our students are located in so many different geographical locations? The first thing we do is we have a chance to meet each other on a more personal level. So this event is actually my favorite event. It is our cohort meet and greet. It's very impersonal, held on Zoom. We tell students, bring your kids, your family, your dinner. We just want to get to know each other on that personal level. We have done a lot of different activities. The ones that have seemed to go over the best have been icebreaker bingo, interactive polling, and having lots of breakout rooms. Students get to hear about each other's lives outside of work. They learn about hobbies and interests. They can make connections with one another. We as the support team also like to hear, what our students are interested in. We've had some really funny conversations about, what people miss in COVID, like sniffing candles in Target, or, all the reality TV that everyone binge watched over the last year and a half. We also have current students come to the meet and greet, and they share their experiences and answer any questions. And I hear feedback all the time from students on how much they love the meet and greet, that it really gives them a chance to start building that community right from the start. So the next event we host before the semester starts is more formal, and that is the orientation with our faculty. Usually there are multiple faculty members that attend, and this past semester it was great. We were able to group the new students with their faculty advisors in breakout rooms, and that really helped foster that relationship from the start. A lot of times students can be anxious about reaching out to faculty advisors. They don't want to bug them. So we found that that eases that relationship building if we're able to kind of show them from the start, like they want to hear from you, they're interested, they're really there to support you as well. And again, the focus is on making sure students feel connected to the university right from the start and showing them that they have so much support behind the scenes, introducing faces to names and so on. And finally, we also have current students and alumni who serve as unofficial ambassadors for our programs. They are students who are volunteers. They speak with new students about their experiences and how to prepare for the program. I know they have talked to each other about time management, organization, study skills, the balance between work, life, and school. And I know McCarran mentioned earlier that it's so helpful for students to hear from people who have been in their shoes. You know, it's one thing for us as the support team to tell you this is what it's going to be like, but when you have actually had the chance to talk to someone who sat in front of that computer screen and done all the work, it definitely helps a lot in helping them feel prepared. So as I mentioned earlier, building a trusting relationship with students is the main goal we have during the onboarding process. It will continue as students progress through the program. And I'm going to turn it over to Dominique now, who will talk a little bit about our role related to providing academic resources to students.
Hello, everyone. I am Dominique Williams, and I support a master's degree in social work program. So when we think of academic resources as educators, it's just very important that we not only look at academic resources as something the school offers, but resources that help drive the student to success. For example, historically speaking, when we think of academic resources, we think of things like tutoring, study halls, office hours, the writing center, the library. This is what we traditionally think of, things that the school provides for students. However, we also need to think of resources as anything that helps advance the student forward successfully. So we take a deeper dive into this quote unquote resources that students may need to be successful. For example, let's say a student in the program is in a program that requires a lot of reading and research. The resource that the school provides is the library, but how beneficial really is the library if a student doesn't know how to use it? So the resource then becomes teaching the student library navigation, showing that student what is available within that library that's going to help them be successful. Same with time management. I help students with time management in a workshop that provides them the opportunity to understand what time management looks like, not only holistically, but what it looks like for them. What does time management really look like for a single mother? What does time management look like for a working professional that works 10 hours a day? What does time management look like for someone that maybe does not have a job and is totally focused on school and has so much free time that they don't know what to do with it? So time management is something that we key in on and show students, this is what your day looks like. This is how you can ensure that you're successful in the program. And this is how we can make sure that we drive you toward that success. So when we think about resources, don't just think about, oh, the school provides X for the student. Think about how you can dive a little bit deeper in understanding and getting to know what is going to work best for that student with the resource that the school provides. So academic resources is very important, but taking a second look at what that actually looks like for the student will help to ensure that students are successful throughout the program. And now I'm going to turn it over to Felicia.
Hello, my name is Felicia, and I work with graduate students in the supply chain program. As it relates to employment and personal stressors, many of our students are active duty military service members. As a coach, my role is to help students think through how they might access their classes while abroad, and if they will even have access based on the country of their mission to the internet. They may need to get connected using VPN, and so we talk through that. We talk through how they might need to order their textbooks in advance. We know how the shipping delays were impacting many of us who were trying to order packages over the last year, as well as how they might need to access their e-text while they are abroad. I can help students think through all of these options, including whether or not they might need to take leave when they get their orders. I work collaboratively with faculty, with the Veteran Service Center on campus, and with our program manager to be sure that our active duty service members feel supported every step of the way. This is especially important when students get orders after the semester has already begun. We support them when they are considering exiting. We can check in with them throughout the duration of their time away from the program or while they're on their mission, and we can help them with re-entering the program. Next is my colleague, Cheryl.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cheryl, and I work with supply chain management graduate students along with Felicia. And because these are personal events that we're talking about, I thought I would take a personal side and just tell you about some students that I have worked with, and as a coach, some of the ways I've been able to support them. One student, Juanita, she does work in supply chain. She actually works for the electric company in Texas. And if you recall the storm incidents we had there, they lost power, they lost electricity. So as her coach, I ended up becoming the advocate and her contact person when she was able to get connectivity. I was the messenger, communicator with her faculty to let them know where she was with her connectivity and when she could discuss work with them. And we worked out a different assignment situation and exam situation. So that was an example how I was able to advocate. I feel like as a coach, I'm sort of the safety net, especially for online students. I think they need to have that trust, as everybody's always said, that someone is there to be their guardian angel, or as Karen had said, or Ashunda, you know, their BFF or somebody who's looking after them. Another student, Jonathan. Jonathan's working full time. He's a single dad. He's co-parenting 2 school-age children. And he's the first member in his family, his extended family, to earn a bachelor's degree. And he'll be the first one, obviously, to earn a graduate degree. And during our first meeting, the first question he asked me was about walking and receiving his master's diploma. And that is why he's one of my favorite stories, because he's had a lot of stress in his life. Like a lot of first generation students, he's also sort of the glue that holds the whole family together. He had his grandmother getting sick. He was taking care of that. And as I said, he's co-parenting. He changed jobs and started working a different shift. So he was feeling a lot of stress. And I kept that imagery of walking across the stage alive for him. And I think that helped him sort of hold on to his goals, keep his eye on the prize. And what we did was, as others have said, I worked with him on time management. We analyzed his schedule, including his custody schedule. We laid out a time management plan. And in the end, he was able to find ways to carve out time and realize that he could do it instead of being overwhelmed. Something else I think that's been mentioned, and I wanted to also underscore, is family issues are so important that we try to include family when we can, when we have events. Just even if it's inviting them to sort of be in the background and watch what's going on, we think that it helps strengthen the relevance and the support that the student feels at home. Another personal issue that we've seen a lot of with COVID, but just, you know, also happens with students in any circumstance, and that is medical issues. And when a student is not feeling well or unfortunately hospitalized, like Nadira, one of my students, she was in her first semester, experienced 2 major medical incidents in that semester. She had an emergency appendectomy. I worked with her to help her get back on track. The faculty member was very flexible, or 2 faculty members were very flexible. And then she contracted COVID. So these aren't things as a coach I can actually resolve, but what I was able to do was help her weigh all of her options for her remaining coursework. She did decide that it would be best for her to withdraw from one of her classes, and I helped her navigate through that process. And when you're not healthy, or when you're new to a university, the administrative processes can seem very overwhelming. And I think it would have been easy for her to just say, you know, that's it, I quit, I just can't do it, I've had too many things happen. But I think that's also another important thing to mention, is that coaches are essential for retaining students. And so I think I'm going to summarize with that. I talked a little bit about COVID and life events, but I'm going to turn it over to Ashunda because I believe she's going to talk about some of those things too. Ashunda?
Yes, thank you, Cheryl. I work with graduate students in both evaluation and information system technology. And there's been a lot of common denominators with this current events in COVID. So in these unprecedented times, there has been a lot of high anxieties and stresses that students have expressed as being direct impacts of these new environments, such as dealing with COVID. So these at-home spaces have made students become more attentive to a variable of emotions that they didn't necessarily have to maintain when they were out and about on campus, or, you know, kids being more at the school front than at home. So some of the things have been like family organization, their children suddenly transitioning from one school environment to another, managing these new schedules with these at-home children, as well as reconsidering the start of their college level students and having to suddenly change plans that was implemented months prior, as well as having some family and self-reflection and dealing with family trauma that was no longer surface level because they weren't, you know, present in the home. And these unprecedented times has forced them to be in these spaces that they were away from, resulting in suppressed things that possibly seem to have been going through a healing process, more so because they weren't facing it, you know, daily, like being at the home front like we all are now. So a lot of these suppressed things are finding their way back to the forefront. And then in conjunction with that, more so than ever, constantly losing family members, friends, community members, colleagues, and humanity all over the world in rushing numbers, as we all know, and trying to harness as much balance and harmony, you know, in reference to their higher education amongst many other important things that, you know, they have in their life. So with these things being considered, there has been a heightened level of support needed, having to have the ability to understand the difference between coaching and student relationships versus the support services that are provided by the university. And just knowing that there has been a change in pace, you know, as a success coach, really having to peel back the layers in order to rebuild again. So there's been a lot happening with, you know, current life events, COVID, and these are some of the things, few of the things that have been happening with the students, but really common conversations lately. So now I'm just going to hand it back to McCarran to share a personal coaching story and briefly talk about university personnel wellness.
Thank you, Ashunda. So as we've talked a lot, you've heard us say probably 100 times already that we're kind of the first line of support for students. So while we're prepared to kind of deal with everything, we're not really ever sure what's going to come at us, whether it's going to be a simple conversation about a missed assignment or, as Ashunda alluded to, a bigger conversation about huge life things that are happening. And I think to a person, the coaches can all share a story with you about a student who found out they were pregnant or were getting divorced or were getting married, or big life things happen in the midst of all of this. And so one of the things that we have been able to focus on is how do we take care of ourselves so that we can be there and be present for our students? Because I think you've heard and seen from us that we love our job, we adore our students, we really, really care about them, but that can drain your cup and can make you step back. So how do we take care of ourselves? I think that you've noticed that we trust each other a lot. We know each other a lot. While we are building that trust with our students and building those relationships, as a team, we have built those relationships. So whether we're working at the same school, some schools are very lucky and have 2 or 3 coaches that can work together. Other schools have smaller programs and only have 1 coach. This team can support each other. So we are very clear on who is good at what. We know who to go to for spreadsheets. We know who to go to if we need help with calendaring. I know who I need to call if I have a tech issue because that is not my forte. So we use each other as a resource and take care of each other because we know that if we are a strong team, our students will get the support that they need and everybody is more successful. So taking advantage of the resources that are provided to us through life work and different programs at work to provide counseling resources, to provide all kinds of things for us to think about our mental health, reaching out to each other and using each other as supports. being honest with each other about what we're going through. We know when someone on this team has a death in the family. We know when someone's getting ready to go on maternity leave. We know what's going on in people's lives because we share that. And that's a part of the beauty of this unique position and this wonderful team. But I think that it speaks a lot to the organization that we work for and the people that we work with, that is just, and it's just something that happens. We just take care of each other and we share those things. I also think from the top down, we get to see work-life balance be modeled for us. We know that Russ's kids are in school. We know what they're doing. We know what's going on, and we're encouraged to be active and present in our families' lives. And I'm not sure that that's something that most of us have experienced in other student affairs realms. So while it may not seem like a lot, I think that does a lot for our mental health and our well-being as a team, knowing that we have that support and that backup. And in all of that, I tell you all of this because we've done all of this online. Most of us have never met these people in real life. We've never met our students. I've worked with my students at the same program for 3 years. I've never seen them in real life, but I've been invited to more weddings than I can count. Zoom weddings are wonderful. Next year, I'll be officiating a wedding for a former student. And when our students have struggles, I had a student who found out she was pregnant in the program. Wonderful. We worked through that the whole way through. And as a mom, it was great to be able to give a first-time mom new advice. And then she had a baby that had an undiagnosed traumatic brain injury. And who she called in the hospital is McCarran. And it was wonderful. And we're still really close. She's graduated from the program, bought a farm in Texas and is raising this wonderful little boy, and is sharing her Montessori journey with all of us. So it's doable, it's possible. And this format and this position have given us an opportunity to make those connections, even virtually, at a really, really deep level. And it's super, super powerful. So we have made lifelong connections. I hope to continue making those. I end up with a lot of Facebook friends at the end of this. And that's what makes my soul happy. That's what makes me enjoy this job. It's the connections I have to all of my students, to this wonderful group that you got to meet today, to all the folks at O'Donnell, everybody at ISG. So I will turn it over to Dominique for some questions about how we connect folks to university resources and how we can build this program and these feelings about our jobs into other places in the university. So Dominique.
Sorry, guys, a little tech share. Talk about those tech issues. So if you have questions for any of us as support coaches, feel free to email our info email address. And if you have any questions, also feel free to drop them in the chat and we can answer them for you. Lots of praise in the chat. Good job, guys. So we do have a question. How do you connect students to their support services as coaches? So I can start by answering that. And if one of the coaches wants to take over after I share, feel free. So how I connect students to support services is I first find out what support services they need. And then I give them a resource at the beginning. When I start working with my students, I give a resource that looks like a roadmap to what their program looks like and any resources that they might need, such as financial aid, our counseling center, their academic advisor. And it just provides, it's a document, and it provides a roadmap for success for them. And it also allows them to click on the resources that they need. So it's an interactive roadmap. They can click on their academic advisor's name and it takes them to their email address or to the website to schedule an appointment with their advisor. Also takes them to the financial aid website or the University Counseling Center website. And I also encourage my students to have meetings with me so that we can talk through maybe some of the struggles or obstacles that they're facing or happy times that they experience, so that maybe they don't know that they need a resource or a student service, and I can suggest that student service to them. So I think just connecting with students and being readily available and accessible to them to provide your experience or perspective. I had a student yesterday that reached out. She's losing her insurance because she's aging off of being on her parents' insurance, and helping her to find resources on, does the university offer student insurance? What does that look like for her? So kind of being a roadmap for students as they navigate what they actually need, because sometimes students don't know.
At our university, we have a Cups and Conversation session ran by the coaches, where we connect with various departments at the university and do sessions over Zoom for the students. So we meet with the School of Education librarian, we've done the Counseling Center, the Career Center, and they come and have a representative from the office give these sessions to students in the evening. Since most of my students are working adults, we record the sessions in case students aren't able to attend, but it gives them a face and a contact with other departments throughout the university and really makes them feel part of the community.
So we do have the question: how do you give leeway to a pregnant student as the school assignments have deadlines?
I can jump in here a little bit on that one. I encourage my students to talk with their instructors. So I work with adult online students. So I encourage them to talk with their instructors, and the instructors know that most of the students in their programs have a lot of other things going on in their life. They're working in their families. So they are really good to work with students. Sometimes that involves incomplete so that they can catch up on work, or sometimes they just help to adjust due dates for the students. And are, reasonably flexible with that.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I am now going to turn it over to our ending presenter.
Oh, thank you guys so much for this great presentation. We really enjoyed it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We learned so much from you guys. And yes, a round of virtual applause for everyone here, for all of you. And thank you for joining us. And we have one more week left of our festival. So please be sure, we're going to send you more information on this. We're going to share the presentation as well as a recording of this on our Slack channel. So please feel free to join us there to continue the conversation. And the great thing about it, all of our presenters are on it, so you can definitely ask them more questions. Please do. They are really great resources. Next week, we're going to be closing out the festival with 2 sessions, one on Tuesday called Embracing Your Authentic Self with Care. And on Wednesday, our finale with the JED Foundation is called You Can Help, and that's recognizing signs of distress among youth and young adults, which kind of brings all of this together. And you can find out more about these sessions on our Purposeful Learning page. And so we thank you all for joining us. We'll see you all next week. Please let us know if you have any more questions. Thank you.